Episode 1 of the counter narrative. There's 2 stories and a Gareth Southgate happy ending. Take 1. Hi guys, welcome to the counter narrative. This is the antidote to woke. My name's Richard Willett. In this show, we're going to look at some very woke stories from the mainstream media and pick them apart and try and tell you actually what they mean and the kind of counter narrative behind them, the subliminal messaging, but not so subliminal anymore because it's very woke and very in your face. The world has gone full woke at the moment. Over on our WTAF podcast, we kind of point out a lot of these stories, and it would be good to go in more depth. So this show is about us laughing at this madness because laughter is the antidote to woke. And some of this stuff is just mad, and we worry about what kids are going to grow up to and what will become the new normal as the overtone window is pushed along. Now, the overtone window is a way of kind of nudging, like the nudge unit in the UK, which was behind most of the last couple of years, push people to a way of life that would seem extreme if done overnight. But if it's done in small steps, totalitarian tiptoe, David Icke calls it, you can push them that way, and eventually that will become the new normal. And this stuff is trying to move us into a place where we will accept the most extreme, mad and bizarre nonsense ever. So I hope you enjoy this. Please like, even share and subscribe. And I'll be doing many of these shows as we go forward. So the first counter narrative that I have, the first story is from a young guy called Lance. Now Lance is here to tell you what you can do via the BBC, the trustworthy BBC, if you have a climate change denier in your family. Now, go and have a look around, see what you got going on. Is it Nan? Is it your cousin? Is it your nephew? Your 4-year-old nephew doesn't believe that it's hot outside and the climate is changing. Now, the great word about change is that everything changes. So you can basically say anything's dangerous because it doesn't stay the same. But I digress. The climate change denier. So this is the BBC News. This is our first story. So climate change. How to talk to a denier. Now, they did this before with some other narratives over the last couple of years that we can't mention, where you could try and talk them into not being a denier, if you know what I mean. So this one. BBC. What can you do when the people closest to you believe climate change is a hoax? Now, the first part of that missing is human caused. Because you can believe the climate is changing, but you don't have to believe that we, as a race, a human race, are being that instrumental in that. We had about 3 days of heat here in the UK. This is late July, and everyone lost their shit. As if we were all gonna die. But we're not. And we didn't, and it rained about 2 days later. But climate change is what they're pushing now, so that's the current agenda. I've got a quote here from one of the books called The First Global Revolution, and this was written decades ago, and to show that this is all a pre-rolled out, pre-planned from Agenda 21. But let's have a look at this. Let's have a look at what Lance has got to say. So I'll bring up a picture of Lance here. Look at him. I've got no friends called Lance. Now, I come from a working class background. All my friends, Gary, Gareth, Dave, Steve, I haven't got a Lance. I don't know a Lance. I'm just saying, putting it out there. Make of it what you will. Lance here, he says, it was during a school pickup a few years ago that Lance Lawson first asked his father about his views on global warming. Who does that? You're usually like, Dad, I really need a poo, or I just want to get home and play with the Lego. Or just, if you're a little bit older, I just want to go on like the PlayStation or something. Shows my age. But no, I'm going to talk about climate change, Dad. We're driving. You keep your eye on the road there. Don't turn around because, you're driving. But let's talk about climate change, me and you. Man to child. He basically told me something along the lines of, it's nonsense, Lance recalls. His dad spoke of unscrupulous politicians. So they tell you the truth, but then try and deny it. They're deniers. Deniers. Unscrupulous politicians, fear-mongering for electoral gain. Climate change, he told Lance, was completely overblown, which is a great pun, by the way. So that's where we're at there. He's telling his father the score on climate change. He's got a dirty old climate denier driving him home from school. It's not what you want. Lance, now 21, lives with his father. Still lives with his dad. 21. Still lives with his dad. Not saying anything wrong with that, but maybe stop having a pop at your dad, Lance, because he's paying your rent at the moment. So, but as time went on, Lance started realising his father's views weren't backed by scientific evidence. And he's just sitting there on his mate's Xbox going, I'm just kind of trying to concentrate on Tomb Raider, but I just can't get it out of my head. I don't think Dad's views are backed by any scientific evidence. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. I mean, do kids think like that? I don't think they do. But as time went on, yep, we've had that bit. So he goes on to say, Lance, whenever he drove me to school, I would give my own argument. Fucking hell, imagine that ride in the morning with a hangover. Oh, it's just Brian must have been... Fucking kid will shut up. I'm going to put him in the boot in a minute. Fucking hot in there, mate. Whenever he drove me to school, I would give my own argument, and he would downplay the evidence. That's not an evidence. And he goes on in a minute to show that he doesn't have any evidence. He just had an argument. Would downplay the evidence. It would force me to acquire new evidence, and that cycle helped me expand my own understanding. So basically, you're arguing over that you did a Google, and then use that as evidence, and then realise that actually Dad's not buying this, and I'm going to need to do more of a Google when I get home. I doubt he was looking at any boobs on the internet. He doesn't seem the type. So this is a quote from the book The First Global Revolution, which is a book that came out in 1991. So this is a quote, and it kind of puts into context that whole article with Lance. So here it is. In searching for new enemies for man, we came up with the idea of pollution. The threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality, this phenomena do constitute a common threat which demands the solidarity of all people. Everybody's all one. But in designating them as the enemy, we fall into the trap about which we have already warned, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention. You get where this is going? And it is only through changing attitudes and behaviour that they can be overcome. And here's the kicker. This is the end line. The real enemy, then, of humanity is humanity itself. And thus, all of this woke nonsense is to blame you, me, and everybody else who's just trying to make a living, raise their kids and get by. You're the problem. I'm the problem. We're the problem, according to these globalists. And they're trying to convince you of that. And this overtone window is being moved along so these kids grow up thinking that they're to blame. And that's what's happening here. Millions of Britons back to the dark ages. Now millions of Britons could be told to switch off the lights and turn down the thermostat to avoid blackouts this winter under emergency plans. Here we go again, another bunch of fear-mongering from, this time, the Daily Mail. Households might have to turn down their thermostats and switch off lights to avoid blackouts under emergency plans. Government measures to tackle the energy crisis this winter would include appeals to the public to cut down on energy use in the event of an electricity or gas supply shortage. Now, here we go again. You are responsible for something that these globalists are purposely causing. This destruction of the way we live, this Great Reset, or the Great Transition, according to the Rockefellers, which sits behind the Great Reset, by the way. Klaus Schwab and that gang. This is all about making you responsible for things that they're doing purposefully and moving the Overton window along so you will feel responsible, not only for your own part in it by just being a normal and living a life, but also for others. And we saw that over the last couple of years, that people were taking responsibility for other people's health, which is mad. Into the extremes that this is going to. So this is all woke madness and all woke nonsense. So these articles, the Lance one at the start and this one here from the Daily Mail, are all about blaming you and me and everybody else that's just trying to make a living and get by for things that these people and these governments are purposely doing. And then you're to blame. So who's this week's virtue sickness superstar? The type of person that's so caring and so loving that he has to tell you about it because it's just bursting out of him or her. They can't keep it in, they're so kind. This week, it's Gareth Southgate. Gareth Southgate is virtuous. He's on an YEE, who are pushing 5G everywhere. I'm putting this out, I don't know, but let's have a look. I'll put it on the screen now. So there is a campaign out. It looks like it's actually just plastered everywhere on the London Underground. And it says, it's got a picture of, we'll see it, 2 women on the side, footballers I'm assuming, and there's Gareth Southgate standing next to, I want to say it's Gareth Bale. I don't know. I'm not a footballer, man. I don't mind it. Watched the England game last night. The women's very good. But it says, she's not the one sending death threats. Unless, obviously, she is the one sending death threats, because that's what happens. They can go both ways. So it says underneath it, sexist hate starts with men. Just let that sink in there. Starts with men. Sexist hate starts with men and can end with them. All men can be part of the solution if they call out hate when they see it. And the point in this, the counter-narrative is just divide and rule. It's going to have the opposite effect, obviously, of what they're claiming to be doing. But the counter-narrative, the undertones of that, is that we just want men and women to argue amongst themselves. Your third generation now of people in the media who do actually think that this is a normal and acceptable thing to put out. And Gareth Southgate is so kind and so virtuous that he's lent his muggins to it. So this week's virtue sickness superstar is Gareth Southgate. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please remember to like, share and subscribe. This is the counter-narrative, the antidote to woke, with myself, Richard Willett. Thank you for doing a watch with your eyes.